morning and welcome to Annmaries Classic Kitchen. I'm glad that you're here with me today. I would like to share with you some of my favorite recipes, some of my family's favorite recipes. And today we'll start with chicken French. My chicken French recipe has been a family favorite for many, many years, and I would like to share some of my what they refer to as my secret ingredients. Today, when I do my chicken French, I typically use a large amount because my family loves it. So today I'm starting with 8 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. For your family, if you're just doing a small amount, you can probably just get away with 4. Typically, what I do with my chicken breasts is I cut them into thirds. If you're not comfortable with cutting your chicken, if you don't feel confident with a knife, you can also get them pre-sliced, thin sliced at either your local market or your the butcher shop. So I'm gonna give you the ingredients, the other ingredients besides the chicken. We'll use a flour mixture. The flour mixture will have in it salt, pepper. I do use Italian garlic seasoning from Tastefully Simple. It is one of my favorite go-tos, but if you don't have Italian garlic seasoning, you're obviously welcome to use another seasoning with garlic and other Italian flavors. I use salt and pepper, parsley, and that goes into my flour mixture. Then I also have an egg mixture. The egg mixture does the same thing, except for I put eggs in it, the parsley, the Italian garlic seasoning, salt and pepper. So each of my my flour and my egg I do use I season both of them. Also for the recipe, you will need, I use this Better Than bouillon. The Better Than bouillon is not a bouillon cube. It's not salty. It has the flavor of whatever it is that you're using. So whether it's a chicken-based recipe, or if it's a beef-based recipe, or a pork-based recipe, or even a vegan recipe, they have different flavors for each one of these. I do not use, and I don't recommend ever using a bouillon cube. I always use this paste. I just don't find the flavor in a bouillon cube even remotely as nice as the base is for it. Also for the recipe, I like to use whole fresh lemons. If you can't get whole fresh lemons, you are always welcome to use a few, I would say, tablespoons of lemon juice. You do have to realize that the lemon juice is concentrated, and the concentration of the lemon juice you have to just use less of because it can get very pungent. One of our favorite wines that we use with this is a Oshist Riesling. We were getting another Australian Riesling that we really, really liked. This one is not super sweet. And it has a really good flavor for cooking when it comes to the chicken French. So I like to use this wine. We also need a half of a cup of butter. We'll be using the butter to make our sauce. Right now, and olive oil. You'll also need to use olive oil for frying. Right now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start getting the chicken ready. I'm going to get most of it cut up. I will walk you through how to slice through the boneless, skinless chicken breast. I will do one of those for you as an example. I will get together my flour and my egg mixture, and once I do that, I will be back. Now I got to cut up my...
All right, you started?
All right, everyone. I'm going to give you a little pointer on how to cut these chicken breasts so that it's more cost effective for you. But first thing I do is I do take off the little bits of chicken stuff that is the extra fat and whatnot. So I do trim a lot of that off while I'm making my chicken cutlets. This would be a larger chicken breast, so this will probably make 3 slices. They will be they will not be uniform. So just please take note of that. They're not going to be uniform, but they do all cook pretty much the same after you put them in the hot oil and you've browned them on both sides. And then you stick them in the oven for the remainder of the time, the 30 or 40 minutes that you put them in the oven for. They typically all cook the same. So what I do is I take the flat of my hand and a very sharp knife, and I just slide my knife across, and I give myself a nice thin fillet. So that would be one slice. And then I'll take the fillet again and I'll give it another slice across. Again, some people are not comfortable with using a knife. I have a lot of comfort with my knives. Been using them for a long time, and again, this is a second cut. If you don't want the pieces as big, if you're not if you don't like a lot of meat like that, you could also take the chicken and potentially cut it in pieces, so strips, smaller strips such as this. So if you don't want to have it as wide as I do when I do the 3 slices, you could also cut it down to a smaller strip. But typically every piece of chicken here is going to get cut into thirds. When I'm completed with that, I will be back to show you how it gets started in oil. Okay, now that I've had a chance to cut up my chicken, you'll see those 8 pieces of chicken breast have turned into a very large amount of chicken. My flour has been seasoned, again with the salt, pepper, the garlic seasoning, and the parsley. And I've also seasoned my eggs. I've gotten them mixed. Also salt, pepper, the garlic seasoning, and the parsley, and I also added a couple of tablespoons of water, and I've beat them very well. Your mixture, let me start with your oil. Your oil should be about we're going to start with adding about 1 inch of extra virgin olive oil into our fry pan, and we're going to get that up to like a medium high temperature. You want to make sure that it's warm enough so that it fries the chicken, that it browns the chicken on both sides equally in a short amount of time. So I first put my piece of chicken into my flour, making sure that I coat it well on both sides. I will then add it to my egg mixture. I do try to use 2 different forks because it makes it easier when I'm doing my transitions. And then you don't get big chunks of stuff on your fork. And it gets added into the hot oil. The one thing you'll want to remember with the hot oil is that the oil will tend to get frothy almost. I don't know how else to explain it, but the oil itself gets frothy, and it's because you're adding the raw egg instead of like doing it egg flour. You're doing flour and then egg. So it will get kind of frothy. You just have to keep using it. And if you are using a large amount of chicken, like I'm doing, you will need to continue to add oil to your pan as you go along because it will soak up the oil. With that, I do advise that you also add, when you add the additional oil, that you let it come back up to temperature again because it needs to heat pretty quickly to just brown on both sides. Your chicken completed or started should look similar to this. Again, it's just been fried on both sides very lightly, browned up on both sides, but the chicken is not fully cooked. Try not to cook the chicken in full. Allow it to finish cooking in the wine sauce in the oven, because if not, you're going to have probably an overcooked, not tender piece of chicken when you're done. And I'm just putting 3 pieces in at a time. And as you see, it is getting frothy. It's getting brown on both sides. I'm going to let that sit a minute. I'm going to go ahead and get all the rest of this chicken fried up. Once I'm done, we'll start working on the sauce. And I will tell you at this time, you'll probably want to turn your oven on to a 350 degree oven. And we'll be back. Chicken's cooking. Okay, while my chicken's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and cut up my lemons. First, I cut off the ends so that you get rid of this thick part that you don't need. I just do a nice thin slice on them. I say thin slice, maybe an inch, or maybe an eighth of an inch. Sorry, I'm really bad at measuring. And I just cut them all up and get them ready to put in the sauce. So my lemons will go right directly in my sauce, and they will cook down with the sauce before it goes into the pan to do its final baking. Okay, my chicken is now finished. You can see that I have a massive pan of chicken. This is a full-size aluminum foil tray. My oven's on 350. And I have some leftover oil in my pan. Whatever leftover oil is in your pan, you will want to use that. I'm going to turn it down because it's actually gotten quite hot, so I want to put it off the heat for just a minute to let it cool down. To that oil, I'm going to add a half cup of butter. To the half cup of butter, I'm going to add the chicken base. I did, in my recipe, there are instructions and there are amounts, but I can tell you that I'm not good with amounts and measuring. I just do what looks right, what feels right. It's how I've always cooked, so just to let you know. From there, you're going to want to add in your lemons. And just add in all of my sliced lemons. You're going to want them cooked down a little bit. What you'll find is, as your lemons are cooking down, the pulp from the lemons are going to cook out of it, so you'll start to see like empty lemon holes. So again, you're going to want to cook this down a little bit with the butter, the chicken base, the lemon slices, and once the lemons start to get a little bit soft, you're going to start adding your Chardonnay. I'm sorry, your Riesling. I don't know why I was thinking Chardonnay. So you'll start adding your Riesling to this.
Sound off the name of the wine.
So I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit more again, because now that I got some of the cold stuff in there, it's not as hot. You do want to get it up to a nice boil, because when you add your Riesling to it, you're going to want to let it cook down a little bit. If you look, the sauce it's a sauce, but it's not gravy, but it is a little bit thicker sauce that you'll want it to look like. So again, you're just going to watch those lemons cook down a little bit, and then you're going to start to slowly add your Riesling into it. I do, yes, add an entire bottle of Riesling. I don't drink ever. Kind of a boring person, so I do like to add wines and other alcoholic beverages to my cooking, because I find that it actually has a much better flavor. Chicken French is intended to have Riesling added to it, though, so I do use an entire bottle when I make this much chicken. If my husband doesn't drink some of it first. But today he didn't get to it, so I'm going to continue to let this cook down. Once it cooks down, I'm going to get it into my pan. I'll cover my pan with an aluminum foil cover. You can just cover yours with just regular aluminum foil. You will want to cover it before you put it into the oven, though. It's what keeps the chicken tender and moist, and it'll sort of steam in the
Now.
Okay, so you can tell that the sauce itself is cooking down. The lemons are starting to, basically, like I said to you, the lemons are, the pulp itself is starting to go out or dissipate into the sauce. I'm going to go ahead and pour the sauce onto the chicken, and like I said, I'm going to cover it, throw it in the oven. I'm going to cover it with aluminum foil, and I'm going to put it in the oven, and it will bake. This much chicken is going to probably bake for about an hour at 350. Typically, you can get away with a half hour for about half of this amount. So I'm going to go ahead and get the sauce into the chicken, and then we'll get it covered up and ready to serve. I do throw the lemons and all right into the pan. It continues to flavor it. I just add the lemons randomly around the top of the chicken. The top of the chicken, so that it continues to flavor it as it's going. And when we come back, I'm gonna give you a little demonstration on the pressure pot, and what we do serve with our chicken French a lot of times is a rice dish. I like to do rice pilaf. I happen to have a Goya recipe, or I'm sorry, a Goya box recipe or box mix. And I'm going to show you how to use the pressure pot to make everybody a little more comfortable with that. So when we come back, we'll be doing the rice.
Now.
Okay, everyone, and we are back, and I am going to give you a little helpful instruction on an electric pressure pot. I know some of you don't have the Pampered Chef pressure pot, electric pressure pot. Some have another version of it, but I wanted to show you how absolutely simple it is to use the pressure pot and how safe it is. I know some of you are really concerned about the fact that these pots can explode, and I do have one of the original pots that used to go on the stove, or that went on the stove. I still have it and I still use it, but I'm comfortable with that. But these new pots actually are pretty fail-proof, so if something should happen and it pressures too much, it will release or stop technically working, so that nobody gets hurt. The cooker that I use is again from Pampered Chef. It has this container which sits inside. Make sure that you put the container in the unit before you turn it on. I'm assuming that the other manufacturers have the same pot inserts. The lid itself has a rubber gasket on it. You want to make sure that that rubber gasket is around this metal ring and that it is completely sealed in place. I find with this one, if it's not sealed and you don't check it to make sure that it is sealed completely, it will and it can not pressurize. So sometimes it will not pressurize if you don't get it where it needs to be. Today I'm going to simply make some rice to go with our chicken French, and I'll be making a yellow rice with red beans, and I actually still had some brown and wild rice from another bag of rice that I had. Rice is pretty much a very, very simple thing to do, whether you do it from a box that's pre-made or if you're doing it fresh, like if you're doing fresh rice. There is settings on this cooker that will allow you to do white rice or brown rice. Brown rice definitely takes longer to cook. and it'll do both rices perfectly fine, and it's really tasty when it's done. So I'm cheating a little bit, and I'm using boxed rice. Not really cheating because it's still natural rice. It's not like an instant, it's not like minute rice, it's actual rice. So I'm going to go ahead, put my rice seasoning packets in, my rice with seasoning packets in the container. Just as simple as that. The recipe calls for the water to go in it. I did 2 packets of rice, so I'm going to put the water in that it requests. That's for that. And just for good measure, like I said, I have a little bit of the brown rice that I'm going to go ahead and throw in additionally. It'll give it a little bit of a bite. Brown rice, wild rice, brown rice tends to be a little heavier. So for me, I like the bite that it gives. So basically you just add that to your cooker. I will add like about a tablespoon of oil. As I mentioned, I'm really bad about taking out a measuring spoon. I just don't measure typically because I can do it by my own sense. Give it a little stir just to sort of mix things up in there. That's pretty much it. You're going to plug in your unit. And again, as I mentioned, make sure that your seal is on all the way. It doesn't matter what cooker you use. The electric cookers, it has to have a proper seal on it. The other thing that you'll note is you'll want to make sure that when you're pressurizing, on this unit there is what looks like a cloud, and this also is a cloud, is a matching. These need to match together in order for this to go down so that it's flat, so that it pressurizes. When it pressurizes, this red dot comes up. It lets you know that it has pressurized. I believe that it takes about 3 to 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, for it to pressurize. And then from there, it only takes about 10 minutes to make. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up so that we can get it in and cooking. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Oh, let me first, I'm going to turn this around for a minute. I'm just going to let you know, you just turn it to the setting. I'm going to turn it to the brown rice setting because I did put some brown rice in there, so I want to make sure that it works correctly. I'm on brown rice on the bottom. It's indicating that it's going to take 15 minutes to cook. It's going to need to come up to temperature. I've got my button pushed up, so I pushed it and I pushed it up so that it's matching and together. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the start button, and I can leave it alone from here. In about 20 minutes, we will have really, really tasty, fluffy rice.
Go.
Okay, the rice is completed. The pressure is out of it. The steam is all out. Everything is good to go. The red dot has gone back down again, and we're ready to open up the rice. Nice and hot. Give it a little stir. And I'll give you a sneak peek of what the rice looks like. Pulls right out of the pot. And here's our red beans and rice. Now we'll have our red beans and rice to go with the chicken French when it comes out of the oven. And again, the pressure pot itself is really, really easy to use, and it's super convenient. It only takes just a few moments to make your rice or whatever it is that you're going to make, your soups, your stews. I'll do some more of the recipes with the pressure pot so that you can get used to the idea of it and maybe feel more comfortable with it. I appreciate you watching the video with me today, and thank you very much. I hope that you enjoy this. Have a great day.